stop following your passion kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, because if all you ever did was what you were passionate about, you would lose.
Danny, I have been looking forward to this conversation forever. I want to say something to you that I've wanted to say for a long time is like I consider myself an early adopter, but not in terms of technology, in terms of people. So I was like one of Andrew Huberman's like first 1,000 subscribers, you
Mm.
know. And when I came across your profile on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is onto something. And that was, I think, a few years ago now. So I am just so excited. It has been so nice to see you grow and just like grow this business. So I'm so happy to have you here. So tell the people listening or watching a little bit about yourself and, sort of where you are today in your career. Just a brief little intro.
Yeah, you got it. And first off, thank you for the kind words, the very amazing intro right there. So thank you. Um, so right now I own a little niche video marketing business that really specializes in helping business owners and founders and companies create video content specifically for LinkedIn, but also works on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all the other social platforms. But we really focus on LinkedIn because we're not really creating content or the goal of creating content for businesses is not necessarily to get millions of views and to go viral and build a giant audience. What we want to do is we want to help people reach the right people, get in front of them consistently, get their face in front of them, get their ideas and their insights and their stories in front of the right people, and really start to build a connection, to their potential audiences on social media without having to, kind of feel the pressure of like, I need to get a million views and a million followers if I'm going to be successful. No, that's not the way it works. I've built like a good following on LinkedIn over the last 2 years, and I have about 20,000 followers, which to me is like by no means influencer status or anything like that, right? Um, and I have made plenty of money on LinkedIn. If I didn't have LinkedIn, I would basically be broke, or I'd be back in working in corporate job. So there is a lot of opportunity to make money on these platforms through your content, through the connections that you have, without thinking that you need to be the next giant influencer.
Mhm. Yes, yes. And yeah, absolutely agree and love everything. And I do see you don't make any like dancing videos or anything. So, yes, the
Not really. I think I
LinkedIn.
have one dancing video out there. Um,
I'll have to find it. I haven't seen that one. I'll go stalk you after this.
All good.
Okay.
No, it's sometimes what I mean. Let's talk about this for a second because one of the things that it's nice to do in your videos sometimes is just to show what life is like outside of your business and like just outside of this content that you are consistently creating, about your niche and try to reach your niche market and educate people. So I had one kind of fun video where my wife was taking a bunch of videos of me dancing at this party that we went to. They had this giant screen, and I
Mhm.
was out in front of the screen, like watching myself on it and doing crazy moves. And I put it out on LinkedIn, and of course, tons of comments, tons of
Yeah.
likes. Anytime you put yourself out there, you always get a good response. So it was
Yes,
fun.
yes. Okay, I actually, now that you're talking about it, I did see that one. Um,
Okay.
and that was super fun. But yeah, and I suppose when I say no dancing videos, it's like no trending,
Yeah,
like
no
that was
dancing and
like
pointing at
you living your
bubbles.
life. It wasn't just that, yeah, yeah. So I do remember that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Danny, take us back to younger you, all the way to the beginning. Like, what was the first job, the first paycheck you ever got, like in your younger,
Oh, this is
even
fun.
school?
So actually, that's probably the first job I ever had is definitely the best one I ever had. by the way.
Ooh.
So I was a Cabana Boy.
That
Um,
is the best.
yeah. So basically, there was this beach club that was in my near my neighborhood where I grew up. I lived in Long Island, so we were right on the South Shore, right on the ocean. And there was like these private beach clubs all down the shore or whatever. And there was these little different private clubs. And, there was ones that, you were very exclusive and there was a lot of money. But the one that I worked at was more like blue collar, a lot of police, firemen, like working families, right? Um, and basically, as a cabana boy, what essentially I did was each person would go down to their beach club and they had these little cabanas, which, had a little refrigerator and a sink, and some of them had a shower. And you would basically bring your stuff down to the beach and then you can go down to the ocean, but you had a place to like also hang out, right? So what we did in the morning was open up everybody's cabanas, sweep out the sand, get it. We would put their, if they were going to be doing some drinking or something, we would put the beers on ice. In the morning, we would set up their chairs to bring down to the beach, all that kind of stuff, right? Umbrellas in the sand, filling up the kiddie pools for the little kids that were running around everywhere. And then throughout the day, as the people would arrive to the beach, we would basically carry their stuff from their car to their cabana, help them put it away, and then just, collect their garbage and stuff like that. Just make sure that they were having a good, like, comfortable experience. And you were working with a bunch of other, teens. I think I started that job when I was 14 and I did it until I was 20, every summer until I was 22. But the thing that's really cool about it is we made, oh, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we made a shit ton of money for a kid, right? So
Yeah.
like we made like thousands of dollars every week. So it was almost like the equivalent of like you were a kid making $50,000 a year. So yeah, and it was all in
Nuts. That is
tips, all
nuts.
in
Yeah.
tips. We got like each one of us had about 20 cabanas. And like the standard tip per family, like per cabana, was anywhere from like 15 to $20 per family. So there was weekends where we would make $3,000 in a weekend as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid.
Whoa. So, yeah. Oh my gosh,
All
that's
while you're hanging out at the
nuts.
beach with your
Yes,
friends
I know.
and
I'm
like
like, I'm trying to think, like, what's the catch? But oh my gosh, that is amazing. I'm like, why doesn't everyone do that?
The only
That
the
is
only
so
catch
fun.
is there is one catch. Like you are
Mm,
there again. The weekends are your big days,
mm,
right? Because
mm.
everybody's coming to the beach on the weekend. Like not some people come during the week every day. That's what they do. That's what they do for the summer with their kids. But the catch was basically on the weekends. We would get there at 8 o'clock in the morning and we would leave at like
Mm,
9:30 at night.
mm.
So you're there all freaking day, but you're also like you're hanging out with your friends, the people, and like even the people who we served our I guess you would call them our members. Um, we had really good relationships with them. Like
Mm.
they would feed us dinner and they would give us drink when we got older. They would give us drinks
Yeah.
and there's people that like I still speak to and still I don't live in New York anymore, so I didn't go back there. Haven't been back there in a long time. But there'll be people that I would go down there and sit down and have dinner with them right now.
Mm,
And
mm.
it would be like talking with old friends.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. But yes,
Yeah, it's
long
very
days.
cool.
Oh my gosh. That yes. And you have to sacrifice, I suppose, yes, you worked with your friends, but it's like you have to give up every weekend, basically,
You're
to
giving
be,
up your weekends, but you're
yeah,
making a
yeah.
fortune.
Yes,
The
yes.
way that I looked at it was like you're kind of giving up your weekends, but then like you have money for the whole year as
Yeah,
like a kid,
yeah,
to go
yeah.
spend on all your weekends. And I mean, not that I kept that money, I burned through it. I was kind of like a
Young.
wild kid.
Mm.
So I was into all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so you did that until you were 22. You
Yep.
said
So, I mean,
like,
and I did that in the
yeah,
summers until
that's
I was 22. So
okay. And then what was next for you after that?
well, I mean, 18, I went to college. I went to college for a few semesters. That was not for me. I failed out. Um, I was just, again, I was 18. I went away. I went to like one of the biggest party schools out there.
Mm,
So I basically partied way too much and didn't really worry about studying. I wasn't like fit for school. Like I wasn't like a school kind of person.
yeah.
But so I think no, it's probably after. So, like I said, I kind of fumbled around college, going from one to the next and trying, I did community college where I did very well in community college because it was so easy.
Mm,
Um, but then like I was going to another school studying graphic design. And when I was doing that, I got into sales and I was working at Radio Shack. So I started working at Radio, which is an electronics store for anybody that is either too young to know it or not in the US to know it. But Radio Shack was like an electronics store that no longer exists,
mm,
basically. But there was one in every neighborhood, right? It was a big thing.
mhm,
So I started working there as a sales rep, and within a few months, I became like a really good sales rep. And they were like, "Hey, Danny, you want to become a manager?" Well, they were like, "We want you to be an assistant manager, and we want you to go to this assistant manager's training." And
mhm,
I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So I go to this assistant manager's training, and I'm on the first day of the training, and they're like, "We want to make you a store manager. We have a store for you right now." And
mm.
I was like, okay, like, let's do it. And like, that was it for college. I got into the sales thing. I started working in retail. And then once I got the store manager job, that was the worst job I've ever had.
Oh, okay.
So
Yes. Tell me more
horrible.
about that. Why?
I worked 7 days a week, like at least 10, 12 hours like a day. Like, cause I was a store manager and I was a level one store manager. So I couldn't do any hiring for myself. I was in the lowest like store in the district or whatever, like the worst performing store in the district. Because obviously, again, I'm a brand new manager. They're just throwing me into like the worst possible scenario ever, right?
Shock fit.
Without any training as an assistant
Mm.
or anything. It was just like, here you go. And obviously, I messed it up. I wasn't like it was fine. I did okay there, but I got burnt out because it was like I was just working every day and
Mhm.
almost every hour, almost every day, open to close at the store. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And then I went to get a job as a sales rep at AT&T. So I started
Okay.
working in an AT&T store, and then from there, I became a store manager for AT&T for a year,
Mhm.
way more training, like proper training, all that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Then I went to B2B sales for AT&T. So
Okay.
that's how I got into, out of retail and got
Mhm.
myself into the business to business side.
Okay.
So I started basically working with small businesses on like selling them telecom, mostly mobile phones, like iPhones and mobile applications for businesses. And then we got into selling internet and voice over IP and all that stuff. So I did that for 4 years, and then after I left AT&T, I went to work for another company, which was an affiliate of AT&T, and they were basically an authorized retailer for AT&T and exclusively sold AT&T products. They operated 1,500 stores across the US.
Okay.
And when I went to work for them, they were starting a business to business team. And I was one of the first people they hired for that.
Mhm.
And we started the business team with 8 people. Within 2 months, I got promoted to be a business sales manager, and we went from 8 people to 150 in 3 years.
Whoa.
So I went from sales rep to sales
Yeah.
manager to sales director. I did all of the sales training for that company. I did a lot. I did all of the like a lot of the recruiting and hiring,
Mm.
interviewing. So I really got to kind of see a little bit about how to run an organization, Although we were inside of a bigger organization, we were operating very much independently and without a lot of the resources that the big organization had. We did have some, obviously,
Yeah.
but that's kind of what got me into like learning a little bit about how to build a business.
Okay. Okay, fascinating. So you're all right, Cabana Boy, sales, retail, AT&T. Through all of this experience, how did you, and not like become good, but how did you figure out what you were good at? It feels like you didn't have a moment where you were like decided, but it feels like through your journey you sort of and not yeah, sort of balance, but like to your strengths. So like tell me more about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my strength is just that I've always been very easy to communicate with, and that allowed me to be very good at sales, right? That's how I got good at sales because I can communicate with people and understand what they wanted and help guide them to make their decisions
Mhm.
without being like overbearing and salesy. I have a natural just way with people, I guess,
Mhm.
which kind of helped me grow in my sales career and then ultimately become a sales manager and a sales director and leader and getting into the whole leadership kind of thing.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I would say. If I had to boil it down to like one thing,
Mhm.
that, and I was also like I'm a relentless hard worker.
Mhm.
So I'm always looking to be in sales, I was very competitive, right? Like I wanted to be President's Club. I won all the trips to Vegas and all
Mhm.
that stuff. Like I was very competitive. I wanted to be one of the best people. I wanted to get promoted. I wanted to become a sales manager and a leader and all that. I was very driven. And like I said, just would really work my ass off to get what I wanted always.
Mhm.
So those are between that and then um, again, my like this gift that I have where I'm just very comfortable. People are very comfortable around me.
Mhm.
I think those two things combined.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, and that makes sense. Like as you describing it, I'm like, yeah, yeah, I can see that. So, okay. So then, um, and you didn't say the company's name, which is fine, but the AT&T partner
Yeah, so that company was called
company.
Spring. That company was called Spring Mobile.
Okay.
It was actually owned by GameStop, which is a big company.
Okay.
But yeah, Spring Mobile was where I
All
worked
right.
after that.
So, and then during Spring Mobile, that's when you were like getting a little bit of the feel of running a business, like having a bit of a smaller team where, I don't know, my experience of entrepreneurship is like you get your hands dirty, you do more than just your one role. So was that your experience there, or like what were you learning? You
Oh
mentioned.
yeah, like I said, totally. I mean, like I was a sales director there. So I had a team of 8 managers and about 50 sales reps that fell under my organization. But that's again where I was doing a lot of the recruiting and hiring at that point. We were doing sales training. I was flying back and forth to Utah once a month to do sales training. So, and like we were the ones that were building the commission plans and coming up with the incentives and all the content for the sales reps and everything like that. So, because again, we didn't have those internal resources and we were growing at a rate that was tremendously faster than what they thought we would do. So, that's kind of where I got into it. But I would say, as far as the entrepreneurial side of it also started in 2015, which I was working. Where was I working at the time? I must have still been working. It must have been like towards the end of my working at AT&T and T and transitioning into Spring, where I got into content creation.
Mm,
So 2015, I started a podcast.
mm,
And when I started my podcast, I learned that there's two ways that you can get people to listen to it: pay or social media. And at this point, I really didn't know much about social media. I don't even think I had Facebook at the time, which was like the only one out there, right?
Yes.
Um, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna see what I can do and try to grow my podcast on social media. So, and again, my podcast was a hobby. I wasn't making any money off of it. So obviously I didn't want to put any money and everything into it. So I was like, social media it is. Well, I got really good at social media
Mhm.
really fast because we grew tens of thousands of followers for the podcast, and we had 500,000 listeners on the
Wow.
podcast.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
We,
incredible.
yeah, we were the number like one or two podcast. I forget. It was like we were top ranked podcast on iTunes. We made like iTunes new and noteworthy. Um, we were kicking ass on that podcast, and it was all from organic growth through my
Wow.
social media efforts.
Wow. That's amazing. Like 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
posted something recently that 10 years ago was the first piece of content that I put out online, and it was
Mm.
that podcast.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's very cool. Are you still running the podcast? Because did you stop?
No,
No.
no, I
Okay.
let's see. I was running the podcast like up until it was in like 2016, like going into 2017. Or maybe man, probably sometime in 2016 that I stopped doing it because my co-host that I was doing it with, he left,
Mm.
and the show really needed two people.
Okay. Mm.
The show wasn't able to run without two, like it wouldn't have really worked with a single host
Mm.
unless I did interviews every single episode.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
that's what I tried to do. I decided to do interviews every single episode. But the podcast was about a TV show, right? Um, do you know the TV show Impractical Jokers?
No, I do not.
Okay, it's very
I'll look it up.
popular. It's very popular in US and UK also, by the way.
Okay.
But Impractical Jokers, it's like a comedy show where they basically challenge each other to do like kind of crazy stuff, and like it's like a hidden camera kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, so that's what my podcast was about. And what I ended up doing was like getting guests from the show every week. So I would have the producer, I would have one of the writers, I would have a PA, I would have like I had one of the guys, like one of the stars of the show on the podcast. And it was too hard to keep up with trying to schedule somebody every single week.
Mhm.
And then if people would cancel and then I wouldn't have any episode for that week. So I
Mhm.
was like, this is kind of not working anymore. And then I got promoted at work, and which meant that I was doing a lot of travel. Like I
Mhm.
said, I said I had seven managers. Well, I had one in Atlanta, Nashville, Florida. I had two in Florida. I had one in up in Boston area. So like I was doing a lot of travel, like almost every 3 out of 4 weeks every month I was
Mhm.
traveling.
Mm.
So I couldn't keep up with the podcast and I shut it down.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, yeah, it takes a lot of work to get guests all the
I
time.
wish I would have known what I had though, because I didn't at the
Yeah.
time, I didn't realize. I didn't even realize that I was a content creator at that point. You
Mm.
know?
Mm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I was just like I was a podcaster, I was doing this, it was for fun, it was a
Mm.
hobby. Um, I didn't make any money off of it. I had my intention, I guess, was that maybe I would use the podcast to get the attention of the people at the network who run the TV show, and like try to make the podcast like the official podcast, like companion.
Mm. Mm.
That's what I was really trying to do. And I was able to get people at the network, but it never turned into that. And actually, long story short, they ended up after we stopped ours, they started doing an official companion,
Mm.
and our podcast was like outperformed that big time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So just saying,
Okay.
I don't know, just
So that's where you dipped your toe in content creation.
that's when I got into the
Right.
content creation thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So content creator, salesperson, now getting a taste of business. So
Yeah.
take me from, I
Yeah. So
suppose, the
at
last
this
10
point,
years.
I'm going like
Yeah.
up, 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 right?
Yes.
And then it
Yeah.
all went
Because,
crashing down.
okay. Yeah. Because I'm like, what made you leave? Because it's hard. It's hard to leave a good corporate role.
I feel like
You
this
know,
is what you
it's
were
so
waiting for,
comfortable.
though. I feel like this is what you were waiting for. It was like, okay, when did it all fall apart? Right. So
Waiting.
like,
Yes. Tell me when it
so yeah,
fell apart and you
and
were
believe
on the
me,
floor.
it fell apart bad.
Yeah.
So right, the company that I was working for, again, I was like, I'm on a very great trajectory. I went from sales rep to sales director to sales manager to sales director really fast. I'm like, I'm sitting in the meetings with the CEO of the company kind of thing. Right. So I'm like, okay, I didn't think I was going anywhere. Then it all started to fall down when one, my company was getting acquired.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, I had some stuff go on with some of the managers on my team. I had one, not one of one of my managers and some of his reps got into doing some like fraud stuff. Um, so so as I was transitioning from the one company into the next one, I was also kind of dealing as this acquisition was happening, I was also dealing with some of this, like I was being investigated for as to what my part was in this whole fraud thing that was going on with the sales team and everything. And although I didn't get in any, there was no repercussions for me. I had to let go of 7 people, um, but like I cleared the investigation or whatever. But as I was going into the next company, like that wasn't obviously the ideal position that you wanted to be in as like somebody who's being investigated by loss prevention kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they ultimately ended up like demoting me from sales director to sales manager when I was kind of coming into the new organization.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which was fine. But ultimately I started looking for other positions. And a few of the guys from the other company ended up starting their own company, and I went with them, but they didn't have like a leadership position for me, so I went back into sales.
Okay.
And I just wasn't really into it. I just didn't really want to be in sales. Like I wanted to be in leadership roles and I wanted to be building something. And then, so I ended up like getting recruited to go work at another company. And I got that job in March of 2020 of all times. So I started that job like right as we were going into like the COVID lockdown thing. And again, it was a sales job, but it was a better salary. It was a more senior level sales rep. But again, I still wasn't I, st- I still didn't really want to be doing that. And I tried very hard to position myself in that organization to get other roles. But it was also very hard because I didn't really have great sales numbers because I'm brand new rep in a completely new industry. And um, at the same time, yeah, I'm a brand new rep. I'm in a completely new industry. And we're in the middle of the thick of the pandemic, right? So I didn't really have many options, right? So it was at this point where I start to say, okay, now also I have some other things going on in my life at this point too. So when our company got acquired, we were supposed to move to Charlotte. So we were supposed to move from New York to Charlotte because Charlotte would have been perfect. It would have been right in the middle of my territory. A lot of our leadership in other parts of the company were there in Charlotte. And I sold my house like all ready to move to Charlotte. And then when the company got acquired, I decided to stay back in New York. And we had some problems with our apartment. We rushed into buying a house that we couldn't afford. And like then I got this new sales job. And basically, I was bleeding money for like the entire, because I wasn't making really commissions. Like we weren't selling much with COVID and everything like that. And it was like, we were in the red big time, month after month after month after month. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to start doing something on the side. And I was like, I'm going to do a podcast again, and I'm going to figure out this time how to monetize the podcast. So I got into this podcast mastermind group, and it was led by this guy, Travis Brown. And as I'm doing this podcast, and he's like kind of teaching me about how to kind of grow it and monetize it. The podcast is like, I'm like, I got 500,000 listeners on my last one. I'm gonna do this again.
Hmm. Hmm.
No, that it wasn't happening. I couldn't, I
Hmm.
was like, we were getting like 30 listeners per episode, and like, add 30 episodes in, and I'm like, what the fuck's happened? Last time I did 50 episodes and I had 500,000, right? So I'm like, this is not going well. And then Travis comes to learn like about a lot of my background in sales and business and all that. And he goes, you need to stop podcasting right now and start a coaching business.
Mm.
And I was like, well, what the hell do I do? Like, what is that? Like, what do I even do? How do I coach people? And he was just like, no, you just like help people with sales. Go promote it on Instagram.
Hmm.
So, like everybody else who's trying to leave corporate, I became a coach, and I was coaching people on the two things that I've had success with: sales and social media, right? And I started working with business owners and founders. I had real estate agents and all that. And I started building this coaching business on the side while I was working for this other company, right? Well, the coaching business was going fine. I had a few clients. I was able to get a couple clients. I was building a brand on Instagram. I grew to 6,000 followers on Instagram. So I was doing okay over there, staying off of LinkedIn because obviously with LinkedIn, I still had peers and my boss and all these people on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. So I wasn't like going to promote my business over there, even though they kind of knew what was going on the
Hmm.
side. I was making my sales. I started to make my sales numbers at the end. So like at least they were leaving me alone. Um, but I was really all in on building the business at that point. And as I'm working with my clients, I keep telling them, I'm like, you need to learn to get on video and start making videos. And because that's how I built on Instagram. I started making videos, right? So I started building my brand there and making videos. And then I started telling all my clients, you got to do videos, you got to do videos, you got to do videos. This is the future. This is what, this was like right as like reels were coming out. Like they were just launching. TikTok was new, right? So I'm like, this is it. This is it. It's time. It's video time. And my clients were just like, yeah, no, Danny, I get it. And I agree with you, except video is really hard.
Hmm.
And it's for a number of reasons, like it could be that they just don't have the time. It could be because they don't know what to do from what camera do I need, or do I put it on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, or like, do I hold my camera this way or that way? There's just so many like how do I edit, right? How do I edit the
Hmm.
videos? There's so many nuances to creating video content that it's like somewhat overwhelming for people. And then there's also the people that are just like, I'm deathly afraid to get on camera at the same time, right? So I'm like, how do I come up with something for my clients that ultimately allows me to create a bunch of high quality video content, make it comfortable and simple and basically easy for them, put it on easy mode, um, and at the same time deliver something that is high quality, right?
Hmm.
And do it in a short period of time. And I came up with this idea where I would bring people into, I use a program called Riverside FM, and it's like a virtual studio. And I would bring them in and I would ask them a bunch of questions. Went back into my old podcasting bag of tricks, like asking interview questions. And that's what I would do. I would ask them a bunch of questions. And from there, I would, film the whole thing. And then it started out I was doing all the editing and everything. Even though I'm a subpar video editor, I'm like I'm okay, right? But again, for the clients I was working with, it was fine.
Yeah, probably better than all of them.
Yeah. And so we started trying to grow that so I started trying to grow that as a business. And I partnered up with a good friend of mine on that who's like I don't know what they call that. Like one of these guys that's like an entrepreneur that's owned like a million businesses or whatever. I forget what they call it, whatever.
Yeah.
But a serial entrepreneur
Venture
or whatever. A
capital.
serial
No.
entrepreneur, is that it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
somebody that
yeah,
owns like
yeah.
multiple businesses. So
Yes.
anyway, I partnered up with him and we work way better as him as my mentor than we worked as like partners.
Mm,
um, but we were promoting this business on Instagram to all the people on Instagram who were already doing video, who were already doing reels,
mm, mm, mm,
and it was tanking. I was putting all my time and effort into it, and I was literally making no money.
mm,
And like we moved to South Carolina. We sold our house, which I couldn't afford anymore. And I took the money from the house and was essentially living off of it, like trying to get by, trying to figure out like,
mm.
I basically lent myself $70,000 from like the sale of the house
Yeah.
to figure out like what I need to do to get this thing up and running. And so I had like a window to get this thing going. And I ended up shutting the business down. This
Oh,
was May of 2022. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with the agency side of the business. I'm going to go back to coaching.
mm,
Well, as soon as I shut the business down, I got some interest in the video service. And I was like, okay, it's interesting. And so I started, I had a couple of clients that reached out, and one of the people that actually, this is a really good story to tell. So when I was trying to grow this video thing, I had come onto LinkedIn,
mhm,
right? So I knew that there was a different crowd on LinkedIn than there was on Instagram.
mhm, mhm,
That the LinkedIn crowd was not making video content. They were struggling with video content. They didn't even like people weren't even focused on it on the platform.
mhm, mhm,
And, but I started looking at some of the top creators on LinkedIn and what they were doing and, kind of starting to get myself out there and get my name out there. But talking a little bit talking on video. We're not even talking about video at the time, or just talk about social media and growth and everything. But people started to recognize me for video just because of the fact that I was putting out a lot of videos. So then I saw this post from a pretty sizable creator on LinkedIn, and her name's Leah Turner, right? I don't know if you know Leah Turner, but so Leah has a big community. She's got a very huge LinkedIn presence, and she makes a post not on LinkedIn but on Twitter, and she writes on Twitter that in a weird, strange turn of events, her LinkedIn videos are performing way better than any of her other content on the platform. And that includes from a leads perspective and views. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Then she says, too bad I hate doing them myself. And I was like, okay, there's an opportunity there. So I reach out to her through Twitter, by the way, because I'm reaching out to her on a platform where she has 1,000 followers as opposed to a platform where she has 200,000. Right. So I reach out to her on that platform and I say, hey, look, I've been following you for a long time. We have some mutual, there's some mutual people that we've known through Instagram and stuff like that. And I have this idea for, a potential business idea to help people on LinkedIn, but I'm not sure if LinkedIn is if there's a viable market for this on LinkedIn. And I'm like, do you mind if I just share the idea with you? And she was very sweet about it and said, yes, absolutely. So I shared the idea with her and she goes, people should be lined up to buy that. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm like, what about you? I'm like, can I do this with you? I will not charge you. I will do it's on the house. Like I will do your video content. And all I ask is that if you like what I do, that you do a testimonial for me and you share it out,
Mm,
whatever, right?
mhm,
So she's like, yes, absolutely. So this happened like kind of like right as I in the process, I'm like getting ready to shut the business down. So we still had this thing on the schedule. We were supposed to do it in like April or something like that. And of course, things got in the way and she got busy and all these things happened, but we end up doing it in like June or July or something like that. And she doesn't post any of the videos on LinkedIn. She's posted them on Instagram. And I'm like, I already know the business doesn't work there. She's not
mm,
posting any of the videos on LinkedIn. Then one day I wake up in the morning and I look at my phone and I have 200 LinkedIn connection requests and a slew of DMs. And I'm like, I'm like, what happened? So she's in the UK, obviously. So she's like 5 hours ahead of me. So she must have posted this at like 3 a.m. my time. And like I said, I wake up 2 hours later to this. And I'm like, what is going on? And I see a post from her that's with one of the videos that we created. And like, but not only was it just like a post, like the entire post copy was essentially like, this is how easy it was to create videos with Danny.
mm,
Like
mm.
it was such a smooth process, and I got amazing results, and like the output is great. And six people from Leah Turner's community signed to work with me on videos that day.
Oh,
And since then, I have been signing clients for that video service. I don't do the coaching
mhm,
anymore. And I went all in on building this niche video agency. I've got a really awesome, I last year in the middle of the year, completely leveled up, added a new team that's doing all of the post production, the editing, and everything like that. And they're kicking ass for me. So, uh, and the business, like I went from essentially making, a couple $1,000s a month as like a coach to, building I bring in like I'm bringing in like over $30,000 a month pretty consistently
mm.
as a niche agency
Yeah,
in
yeah.
a year and all that's happened in the last, I don't know, year and a half.
Mhm. Yeah, that is fantastic. Honestly, it's been really, really cool to see. Um, yeah, I've been with you for at least a year and a half. I know that for sure. So it's been really cool to see. Um, and I think you have mentioned some of your hardships, right? I mean, during this podcast, but what I'm saying is like in your content, like, you can do it. You can sort of. So what, when you were at that like hard part where you were, I need to close down this business, it's just not making me money. And then, you know, obviously you still had a little spark to even reach out to Leah. So what was that like? How did you do that? Because I think so many people will just be like, it's not working. There's no point in reaching out to this person. Like, I quit. What got you to not quit? Like,
Well, I mean, look, I saw the need in the market. I saw the need in the LinkedIn market. Like I'm like, man, it didn't work on Instagram. And I'm like, and I don't want to really run an agency necessarily. And I'm like, I'd like to kind of just do the solopreneur kind of thing, right? So I didn't think I really wanted to run an agency, but I'm like, the market is telling me that this is a need, like this is a significant need in the market. And then when you pay attention to like what's going on, right? And obviously I was paying very close attention to people like Leah Turner,
mhm,
because I'm like, maybe I want to get into LinkedIn training, and maybe I want to like, because I'm like, I'm obviously having success with my content on LinkedIn as far as just, learning how to get views and impressions and get engagement and all that.
mhm,
So, Leah's a person that obviously could potentially be a good connection for me. And when you're paying attention and watching what's going on and like observing these things, and then you see an opportunity, you just hop on it.
mhm,
And I saw the opportunity. and I hopped on it. And that's the same way that I was able to get a bunch of like, I guess you would call them like LinkedIn influencers to do videos with me. So I did videos with Luke Matthews. Like immediately after Leah, I signed Luke Matthews, and then I signed Matt Barker, and then I signed Richard Vanderblom um, and Ryan Musselman. And I did a lot of videos for people for free.
Hmm.
I said, hey, like if you go out and share the video with my name on it, like this is on me.
Hmm.
And, that allowed me to build up like some really good social proof
Hmm.
that helped me to sign like some of these people that were, aspiring to be like some of these large creators. I don't need that anymore, right? Like my business used to depend on that, right? Like I used to be like, these are the people that I create a video for, and then and I'd be like, come on, now you should come with me and create video. I don't do that at all anymore. Like I don't. Right now, like I have enough credibility with just the, with the people that I've been working with, and the videos that the behind the scenes style videos that I create that show people what the process looks like, and how we go about creating high quality content for people in a short period of time. So I don't necessarily need that like additional social proof anymore that I got from those kind of big creators. Although I will have some of that in the podcast, that I'm doing like I don't know if you call it a podcast or like a live series. I call it a podcast. And I have some big name people kind of that I have lined up to do that. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now thinking back, you know, your lessons learned, what is one thing in your opinion, your perspective, that people are not speaking enough about when it comes to building a career, a life? I honestly like career is so intertwined to life, so it's not a career and then life. So, what is your point of view? What should we be speaking about more when it comes to building this life?
Um, just like when it comes to building businesses and stuff like that, or
Yeah, just
yeah.
work that you love.
Yeah, so I'm gonna like steal this from one of my mentors or whatever. But we did a video. He's a client of mine also, and he did a video that was like stop following your passion kind of thing.
Mm,
Um, because if all you ever did was what you were passionate about, you would lose.
mm,
Um, that there is going to be things that you need to do to get to where you want to be in your business, in your career, in your life, that are going to take discipline and hard work that that you're not all that excited about.
mm,
Like I'm not all that excited about sending like 50 DMs. Like I'm not all that excited about doing all these like sales follow-up messages like when people don't buy, and I'm like, "So, are you still considering moving forward with the program?" And I mean I have ways that I have minimized like that type of thing, and I get people that are serious about buying. I've learned ways to qualify people better. So that's, from a business perspective, I think that's something that people can talk about, is like how they actually qualify and make sure that they're getting themselves in front of the right people. Right.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I would say, there's a very like anti hustle culture kind of thing.
mm,
And like it and I don't agree with it. Like I think you need to hustle hard,
mm,
like to be successful. I do. I don't think that like, people think that you don't need to push it. You don't need to hustle hard. And everything says the opposite. Like there's no overnight success. Like, I mean, there is, but it's such a freaking anomaly
mm,
to have an overnight success. Like, I mean, maybe you're the guy that was drinking the cranberry juice and rocking out to that song from Fleetwood Mac or whatever, and all of a sudden you get something overnight, right? But like or like your Hawk Tua or something like that, right? Which obviously she just tanked her whole thing with this like
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, with this Bitcoin or this like
Mhm.
crypto
Oh,
bullshit that she pulled or
gosh,
whatever, right?
yes,
So
yes.
like I
Oh,
think she kind of tanked all like
yeah.
whatever she had built up, right? But like those kinds of those scenarios are so few and far between that like this like anti-hustle culture thing, like I don't like you gotta hustle. You need resilience, you need discipline, you need to work your ass off. And like and that doesn't mean that you need to neglect other parts of your life. And like, I mean, I I work my ass off, right? But that doesn't mean that every single night I don't cook dinner for my family.
Mhm.
I also like I help my kids get ready for bed and tuck them in and read them books and we play games together and I coach their basketball teams and all that. I make time to do all these things and I do rest, right? I was like constantly like on the go at all times. But you know, in the last 5 years, like, are there weeks where I worked like 120 hours? And yeah, there are.
Mhm.
And like, that's just the reality of what it takes to get to where from like me, where you literally have nothing and build something in a year and a half to 2 years.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I would say that's a big one that I think more people should be talking about. And I think more people should just be transparent about the challenges that they've had in their lives and how they've overcome them, because people want to work with those who have overcome challenges. People don't necessarily want to work with people that have never been challenged before,
Mhm.
right? So if you are vulnerable and you talk about some of the mistakes that you've made, like it's not going to hurt you or prevent you from getting business. It's only going to help you get more business
Mhm.
because people want to work with the people that have reached some sort of obstacles and proven that they can overcome them, because if they've proven it for themselves, then maybe they can help you get over the hump of whatever that obstacle is, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's another addition to um, that people don't do enough of. It's all about the wins. It's all about the wins, all about the wins, all about the wins. And of course, like most of what I'm sharing is the wins, but I will come out and tell you like this was a total failure and I have no qualms about it at all.
Yeah. Yes. And I love those two things. Like, and I do feel like that. I mean, I'm running my business, but then I'm like need to go pick up my kids and I keep saying I'm falling behind. Like I feel like, I need to put in more hours, but yeah, like I'm in the car. So even when I'm in the car, I'm like, okay, listen to podcasts, figure things out, like try and just do that. And it's true. Like I've run a business before and yeah, work super hard. Like and it does take that. And my favorite saying is the it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And that is like, yeah, exactly right. It takes hard work. You have to put in the time. And yeah, people who have not overcome challenges can be, yeah, a little bit like they don't know, they don't get it. So it feels like it's not real. Yeah. So I love those things. Okay. Now to wrap up, my closing question is going all the way back to your younger self. Doesn't have to be Cabana Boy, but like your younger, 20s. What would you thank yourself for doing then?
Oh, what would I thank myself for doing then? I mean, I would for working for always relentlessly pursuing the next thing and working my ass off. Like I thank myself for my work. I would thank myself for my work ethic. That's
Mm.
that's it. It's not because, like I said, there's a lot of things that I screwed up on as a kid. Like I told you, I was like a wild kid or whatever, right? And I did a lot of things wrong. But one of the things that I always did right was I always worked hard to get what I wanted.
Mm.
Always.
Mm. Love that. Okay. Now tell everyone how they can work with you, why they should work with you. Tell us all the good stuff.
Yeah, no, so like I said, if you are looking to put yourself out there, you are looking to get your face and your voice and your insights and your stories in front of the type of clients that you would like to work with, right? Not the type of clients that are going to drive you insane. Like you want to create content that resonates with the people that you would really love to work with. Um, Video content is the best way to do that, right? People get it. People get to know, like, trust. People do get to know, like, trust you. There's a credibility. There's a familiarity. It makes it so much easier for you to sell when you have this stuff, right? When you're doing this, selling becomes so much easier when you have like consistent video content and people jump into a sales meeting with you and they already feel like they know you,
Mm,
right? There's already a level of trust there. They're basically sold at that point. You just need to kind of take them home.
mhm,
So it just really makes life so much easier. To have when you have that video content all the time. So if you would like to put your video content on easy mode, um, that's what I do. I help people create video content that is high quality, that the messaging is on point. I guide you through the entire process. I help you develop your ideas into content that really attracts attention. And if anybody wants to work with me, they could just find me on LinkedIn. Just look me up, Danny Delvecchio, Coach Danny D. If you just type in LinkedIn video, I'm typically one of the first people that pops up. And you'll see I look just like this. I always wear my hat. Um, so that's the brand. That's the brand. So all you got to do is get in my DMs, book an appointment with me. My appointment link is all over my profile and we could chat about how it works and see if it's a good fit for you.
that's fantastic. Thank you. And thank you
Oh, and
for
follow my
chatting.
YouTube
And
channel. That's
oh,
the other thing.
YouTube. Okay.
That's like,
Yes.
oh, I gotta tell everybody. My best content is on YouTube and nobody sees it because I built last year I did 200 YouTube videos and I
Whoa.
didn't tell anybody about it. Barely. I barely talked about it. So
Wow.
this year I am promoting my YouTube channel. So go check
Okay.
me out, Coach Danny D on YouTube.
All right. I am going to follow you immediately.
Thank you. I'm almost at 500 subscribers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you're doing amazing. I'm on like
Thank you.
46 subscribers. I'm like, come on.
Well, I'll,
I'll
I'll,
get
I'll
there.
subscribe. You got another
Okay.
one,
Great.
47.
47. Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's been so awesome chatting with you.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.